From the outside, this apartment in Columbus, Ohio looks completely normal. A third-floor unit in a mid-rise building. The kind you'd scroll past without a second glance. But if you step inside and look at the kitchen table, you'll find something that tells you everything about the American economy right now. 3 jobs. 1 person. Still not enough. Her name is Madison. She's 28. College degree. A credit score she obsessively monitors. And a spreadsheet she updates every Sunday night. Trying to figure out how to cover rent, student loans, groceries, and a car payment all at once. She can't. And the thing is, she did everything right. She went to the school they told her to go to. She took the loans they told her were an investment. She moved to the city they told her had opportunity. She followed every rule of a system that was supposed to reward exactly that kind of effort. It didn't. This is not a story about one woman. This is the story of an entire generation, systematically locked out of the financial life they were promised. And what we found when we started pulling on that thread is far more disturbing than a bad economy. This is the story of how it was engineered to work exactly this way. For most of the 20th century, there was an unspoken deal in America. Go to school, work hard, buy a house, retire. The math was simple enough that it worked for millions of ordinary people who never questioned it. Your parents probably lived it. Your grandparents definitely did. That deal is gone. And most people under 35 feel it, without being able to name exactly when it broke, or why, or who broke it. They just know the finish line keeps moving. That no matter how hard they work, the number at the end of the month is always smaller than it needs to be. In 2024, the median home price in the United States crossed $420,000. The median income for someone in their late 20s sits around $42,000 a year. By any historical measure of affordability, those two numbers should not coexist. But they do, and the gap between them is not an accident. The policies that created this gap were debated, documented, chosen by real people in real rooms who understood exactly what they were doing. This is where things get interesting. The debt arrives before everything else. Before the first job, before the first rent check, signed at 17 or 18 in a guidance counselor's office with almost no understanding of what it means to owe $50,000. In 1980, a year of public university tuition cost around $3,500 in today's dollars. By 2024, over $11,000. At private universities, $40,000 a year or more. Some schools now charge over $80,000 a year when you factor in room and board. Why? The answer runs directly through Washington. In 1965, the federal government began guaranteeing student loans. The logic was simple: make borrowing easier, more people access education. What happened instead follows a pattern economists have a name for. When the government guarantees payment, the price of whatever they're paying for goes up. Every time, without exception. Tuition didn't rise because education got more expensive to deliver. It rose because universities learned the money would always be there, no matter what they charged. And here is the part that makes it a trap rather than just a bad deal. Student loans in America cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. You can walk away from a mortgage. You can walk away from credit card debt. You can rebuild after almost any financial disaster. But student loans follow you for life, until they are paid, or until you die. But that was just the first layer. Because while an entire generation was being loaded with debt before they earned their first paycheck, a second system was quietly closing the door on the one asset that was supposed to eventually save them. After the 2008 financial crisis, institutional investors began buying single-family homes at scale, not to live in them, to rent them back to the very people who could no longer afford to buy. By 2023, in some American cities, institutional landlords own more than 1 in 5 single-family homes. Entire neighborhoods permanently converted from ownership to rental. Then a Department of Justice investigation revealed something even worse. A software platform called RealPage had been used by the largest property management firms to coordinate rental pricing across millions of units simultaneously. The algorithm, prosecutors alleged, was behaving like a cartel, recommending rent increases in concert, suppressing competition, inflating costs far beyond what any real market would naturally produce. The system made one fatal mistake. It left a paper trail. But there is still a third layer, the one that made all of this possible, and it came from the most powerful financial institution on earth. After the 2008 crash, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates to near zero and began buying trillions of dollars in bonds. The stated goal was to prevent a second Great Depression, and in a narrow sense, it worked. But what it also did was inflate the price of assets. Stocks went up, real estate went up. Every asset that wealthy people already owned went up, and people who had nothing yet, who were young, just starting out, were priced out. Not gradually, structurally. Every dollar printed to rescue the system made it harder for the next generation to enter it. The Federal Reserve's own data shows this. The share of total wealth held by Americans under 40 has declined in every single decade since 1990. Today, millennials, the largest generation in American history, hold roughly 9% of total United States wealth. Baby boomers, at the same age, held 21%. That gap does not close on its own. Go back to that apartment in Columbus. Back to the spreadsheet on the kitchen table. Madison graduated in 2019 with $52,000 in student loans. Starting salary, $38,000. Her first apartment cost $1,100 a month. By 2023, the same unit was $1,600. Her salary had grown to $45,000. Every year, she worked harder. Every year, the math got worse. She is not exceptional in her struggle. She is typical of it. Across the country, people in their late 20s and 30s are making choices that previous generations never had to make. Delaying marriage because they cannot afford to combine two unstable financial situations. Not having children, or having fewer, because childcare in most major American cities now costs more per month than a mortgage payment did in 2019. Watching the retirement window close in real time, knowing that starting early requires money left over, and there is never money left over. A 2023 survey found that 45% of Americans between 18 and 34 believe they will never own a home. Not that it will be difficult. Never. That is a number no functioning society absorbs quietly for long. And here is perhaps the most disturbing part. The people who built these systems, the Federal Reserve officials, the university administrators, the asset managers, the software executives, most of them would tell you, with complete sincerity, that they were doing their jobs, that the system worked as intended. That is exactly the problem. In 2022, inflation hit 9.1%, the highest in 40 years. The Federal Reserve raised rates aggressively. Within 18 months, mortgage rates climbed from 3% to over 7%. For first-time buyers who had spent years saving for a down payment, it was catastrophic. The monthly payment on a median-priced home increased by over $1,000 almost overnight. The window slammed shut. The system had pushed the math too far. Tuition too high, rents too elevated, wages too stagnant, rates too extreme. The consequences were no longer theoretical. They were showing up in birth rates, in migration patterns, in the political anger of a generation that had been told the system was fair and experienced firsthand that it was not. Here in Washington, D.C., inside the marble buildings where these decisions are made, the language of generational fairness has started appearing, cautiously, reluctantly, in official documents. The data is publicly available, updated every quarter. The numbers do not improve. Some economists say the system will correct itself, that wages will rise, housing supply will expand, inflation will normalize. Others look at the structural forces, the student loan machine, the institutional landlords, the asset price inflation baked into decades of central bank policy. And say correction is not coming without real intervention. Not adjustments at the margins. Real intervention. What almost no one disputes is that something broke. The contract between generations, the promise that the next cohort would have a reasonable shot at the life the previous one had, was violated. Not in one dramatic moment. Quietly, over 30 years. In 100 policy decisions that each seemed defensible in isolation and catastrophic in combination. Madison still updates that spreadsheet every Sunday night. It still doesn't balance. She started a second savings account, not for a down payment anymore, just for emergencies. She calls it her real-life fund, just in case it all falls apart. The machine that created her situation is still running. And until the people operating it are forced to look at what it has actually produced, not in economic models, but in real spreadsheets, on real kitchen tables, in real apartments that cost too much, nothing will change. Every single one of them deserves better than this. The damage done to an entire generation's shot at a stable life is already permanent. And so far, in this country, almost no one has been made to answer for any of it.